All right, we're going to use this as a review for getting ready for tonight's lesson. So I'm going to try to work through this fairly quickly. This is what we went over in our last gathering at youth group. And so we're going to just try to very quickly move through the Beatitudes. And with each Beatitude, I'm going to give you kind of the core principle, the core truth that Jesus is trying to communicate as he teaches these things. Remember back, this was really 2 lessons ago, we talked about kind of the big problem of that first beatitude, which was, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That means to be empty, to empty oneself. And the problem with that is that's counterintuitive. It's counter to kind of how our sin nature has shaped us. The enemy comes in and tries to confuse us and trick us to believing what this R.C. Sproul is communicating here with this quote. While sin often feels good, it does not produce happiness. And so what ends up happening is Jesus tells us to empty ourselves so that we can be filled by his Spirit. But that doesn't feel good to us. And it doesn't, the world certainly would not agree with emptying yourself. So our flesh, the world, Satan is saying, get all that you can, make it about you, you're the center of your universe, you get yours. And while that feels good, the looking out for me, it does not produce happiness, which R.C. Sproul is saying here. And then he goes on to say the fundamental deception of Satan is the lie that obedience can never bring happiness. And that was what I was trying to say a couple weeks ago with just talking about the garden and Satan twisting God's words, that he is going to try to convince us that living outside God's boundaries, set boundaries, his rules, his law, is where the good life is, where fulfillment is. And the problem is, it feels good for a while, but it never produces happiness, and it certainly doesn't produce eternal life. And so, as we work through these Beatitudes, be aware that these are hard things that Jesus is calling us to, and yet our flesh and Satan and the world are going to be trying to convince us to do right the opposite. So here we are in Matthew 5, 1 through 12, and I'll read these verses. Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and when he had sat down, his disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you, and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you.